By now, you've had a little look at the Hank Green crash course on the nature of reality. That was just to give you a little bit of a sense about how we're going to be spending a lot of time in this subject, complexifying everyday taken for granted concepts. We're going to be doing that not just with reality, as Hank Green just has, but with power, space and place, communication and narrative, exchange, self and community identity, and reality, as well as virtuality. Each week, week by week, we're going to be spending time thinking about and exposing you to the key theorists who've begun to theorize and create philosophy around these key concepts. People who've dedicated their lives quite often to beginning to think about these things. And we're also going to be looking at people who've begun to apply those key ideas to our life on the internet, to our network to digital life. So the first part of the subject, before the semester break and in the 1 week following the semester break, we're going to reflect deeply on these key concepts. And just as Collick and Smith have shown how they do that in their now quite old 1996 article, we're also going to be trying to apply these observations to what we see in our online social networks. So the reason we assigned the Collick and Smith article this week is just to show you how from the very advent of the internet in the 1990s, social theorists were beginning to look at all of these 6 key concepts, look at these really major ideas and think about how digital life was nuancing them or changing them. Now, please don't be overwhelmed in this subject. Sometimes when we're encountering these big ideas, just as you probably felt when you watched that Hank Green video, if you've never been exposed to philosophy before, it can be quite mind-bending and disorienting. Some people love that. They find it really disorienting. And other people find their lack of certainties is very, very unsettling. I want to remind you that there's 2 purposes for this subject, if not 3. Number 1 is to give you the skills that you need to survive and thrive in your BA degree. And those are just key, quite basic academic skills. How to read academic articles, how to cite academic theorists, how to build arguments that dialogue with academic ideas, how to apply academic ideas to everyday life, how to write in an academic way, and how to reference academics. Those are just your basic skills, garden variety, you would need in any degree, and we're going to show you how to do that for the BA. But having a subject that just does that alone would be a quite boring key skills subject. So what we also do, we call that the grain, but we also give you the fruit, which is some enticing big ideas that are also going to be taken up in various different ways in your subject disciplines that you end up majoring in. And different majors tend to focus on some of these ideas more than others. So you get lots of opportunity over your 3-year degree to have these ideas reinforced. So right now, just let these ideas wash over you and excite your imagination. It's okay to be bewildered, but certainly don't feel like you need to master everything and get everything down. Now, in the last part of the subject, we go back to these key ideas. So we never leave them behind. And we start to apply them to not online social networks or digital life, but everyday in real life. We look at global networks and we look at them through 4 network themes in the last 4 weeks of this subject. We look at networks of people, for instance, through diaspora and migration. We look at networks of food, for example, through foodways. Or foodstuffs, food miles. We also look at networks of stuff. So for example, we look at networks of supply chains and manufacture. And finally, we look at networks of nature, not only in terms of ecology, but also how human networks and human migration, moving of stuff and things around in the world for various reasons has impacted on nature. So all of this is to build you up so that you can do your final assessment, the case study essay. Oops. Now, every week you have 2 assigned readings. One is a blog, so giving you a screenshot here of the one that you have this week, and the other is an academic reading. We do that for 2 reasons, and one is academic readings are written for specialist academic audiences. That is, people who have a BA, an MA, a PhD in a particular field and have often been contributing to it for 10 years or more. They understand the language that is germane to that particular discipline. And that language can be quite opaque and specialized. It can seem quite jargony if you're not an insider in that little filter bubble of communication. And that's okay, because it's not for an everyday reader. But we want you to begin to learn to read academic peer-reviewed writing, because that's the kind of research that we do cite if we are a part of an academic community. But mindful of how difficult it can be to read academic readings, even as we've tried to find ones that are appropriate to the level of a first-year student for this subject, we have also suggested that you read blogs. And these blogs are written for a general educated audience, so they're going to be less jargony. Now, I said there's two reasons we've assigned blogs to read. And the second reason is because you yourself, for part of your assessment, are going to start writing blog entries. The first one you're going to write in week 3, and I'll talk more on that later. And the second one you're going to write sometime between week 4 and week 8. So we want to give you a sense of the sort of blog that you're going to be writing, the kind of language that it is. Now you can see that this is for an academic audience. And we've said to you, it's all right to be a little bit informal when it comes to writing a blog, because the language isn't quite as precise as it would be for an academic article or essay, for example. It's a little bit more everyday. But sometimes when we say that to people, they get a little bit bewildered and don't know what we mean by that, because you obviously haven't been indoctrinated yourselves into academic writing yet. So I'm going to give you an example of the sorts of language that is okay. You can see that people are still writing in full sentences, they're still writing in paragraphs, and that the audience is still someone who is generally well educated if it's an academic blog, such as the kind that we're expecting you to write. But you can also see that blogs have hyperlinks on them because they're networked communication as opposed to articles or books, which are often, especially prior to the advent of open access, they're discrete and self-enclosed. And we're encouraging you as well to have hyperlinks in your blogs, and we're going to show you how to do that. So this is your first blog reading for this week, and we assigned it on what is social theory, on social theory, because social theory is generally what we're going to be using to begin to analyze our 6 key concepts through which we think about networked digital life and then globalized networked worlds. So let's take a break from this again, from part 2, and go to our next clip, which is Ask Dalton Conley, what is social theory?